The worst part is there's some anime like Attack on Titan where they're relatively Western names. So it shouldn't be as hard, and it isn't, but still there's so many characters and so many names, and then someone will be talking about like, oh, I really loved that one character that was in like 5 of the episodes before they died. And then you're like, who? Who the fuck are you talking about? I don't remember that name at all. They're like, oh, don't you remember right when this part happens and this part happens? And then they like tell you the entire like storyline of those 5 episodes, and you're like, oh yeah, now I remember. There are so many English dubbed there are so many English dubbed animes that are fantastically dubbed. Attack on Titan is not that. They'll be like they'll say some words, and then they'll say it's always whenever they have like an English like word that's like a part of Japanese that I feel like I need to re-say the sentence. They'll be like frying pan, and I'm like, ooh, it sounds like English. I like it. I know what that means. It means frying pan. Oh, frying pan. I don't even know if that's actually like one of the words. It's definitely like not. But there are so many English words that they use in Japanese where it's like there's a certain word for it, but it's like a type of word in their language that is basically just the English word in like a Japanese dialect. No, not katakana. They're borrowed words is what they are. Loan words and wasai aigo. They're just called borrowed words basically. But like kamera is camera, and takushi is taxi, and kuriku is click. It's also like one of those things too where some words that are like borrowed English words, it's like, because inflection matters a lot in Japanese, but like so you can't really guess what English words. You kind of can, but you also just kind of can't. So I know what katakana is, yes. It's one of their alphabets. They're literally borrowed words. In Japan, there are a ton of words that they use where basically like they either didn't have a word for this thing, so they just took the English word and pronounced it in their like normal way of pronouncing words. If cognates means borrowed words, that's fine. Brown is brown, stuff like that. Okay, if it's like borrowed words, then yeah, cognates. If that's how that's pronounced, then yes. It's not the same pronunciation necessarily, but it's very close. But the spelling is also close, but it's not the spelling and the pronunciation that's like the closest thing. Is the definition is the same. Yeah, I'm specifically talking about borrowed words. I'm gonna assume that cognates and borrowed words have a huge crossover where it's like, I'm pulling out the paint, baby. This is my assumption without doing any research and being a dumbass streamer. Okay, it's like a rectangle and a square where all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangle are square. And so what I'm thinking without doing any research is that a cognate and a borrowed word, borrow, is kind of like that, but actually different, and is more just like a big Venn diagram with most of it overlapping. That's what I'm gonna say. Yep. But it might be different. It might be actually exactly like the square rectangle, where maybe it's like borrowed words and cognates, or maybe opposite, where it's like cognate and then a large portion of borrowed words are on the inside of that. Like all borrowed words are cognates, but not all cognates are borrowed words, maybe. Or maybe the vice versa. And then what you get down here is actually something quite different. And so then you find out that if you were to have a honey bear and you drew it with only one line, could you actually make it look like a honey bear? And I think the answer you might find out is that's pretty much all Picasso ever did. And it's kind of cool when you think about that, because I'm basically a really cool, awesome, dope artist, if you think about that like that. And I could sell my paint drawings for probably about $7 million on the OpenSea if it was 2 years ago. Is everyone following?